who do you think, just because you brought it up, who do you think is the most not self-aware?
Oh, that's it. I really think that I mean, Luann is up there and that she's not, but Ramona, they all are, but it's so hard for me because I feel like a lot of it's an act and I can't separate the act from the real, complete unself-awareness. But yeah, I think that's a prerequisite. I would say across the board, the housewives that are on the shows and get the headlines and become like the stars are completely unself-aware. It's like, you have to be in order to be playing at that level. Like, I think across the franchise, I'm not just saying in New York.
It's like one of the characteristics that production has down, probably in casting.
Yeah, I mean, it's all production. It's I mean, the women serve it up, but it's ground through the prism of Bravo production and all the what they do to make the show. I mean, that so I say that they're not really self-aware, and I really honestly believe that. Like, there's just a level of delusion, and Bravo is really great at exploiting it. So, it's like they're exploiting. I mean, if you think about it, it's like they're really good at exploiting emotional issues, mental illness, alcoholism, all that, addictions for entertainment value, because it does, when they grind it through the Bravo machine, it comes out kind of funny, right? I mean, we're all like, it looks funny on television, right?
Do you think like they just sense it? Like when you're filming and you see something, I mean, they probably double down, I would assume.
Yeah. I mean, listen, there's a huge machine behind the show. There's a story department, there are producers, there's like, they know what they're doing. When we're in scenes, if I recall filming, you could always tell when someone says something really whack, right? And you just know where you just know that it's gonna be amplified. And in the show now, remember, like, they're filming dinners and they're 3 hours usually. Most of that time is boring, right? Most of the time you're like blah 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 blah, and then you feel the pressure of coming up with something, and then there's like drinking throughout the dinner. So they cut a 3-hour dinner into a 7-minute segment.
Right.
So 7 minutes, and they use all like I always thought like the reaction shots were taken from other area, other parts of the conversation. It wasn't like someone says something crazy and then everyone reacted like,
right. They like build it up.
During the course of the dinner, 3 hours, people, when they're talking and they might make a weird face, and then they take that weird face you made and put it over someone saying something to make you look insensitive. Maybe it's like, oh, that wasn't very nice. You rolled your eyes at her when she was being vulnerable. I'm like, well, I'm sure I was rolling my eyes at something that was said 2 hours earlier.
Right.
To do with what she was saying. So
well,
you really be, it's a jungle out there.
Well, based on all that, listen, you were stationed in the Gulf War. You worked with Peter Jennings. You started at 2020. You make a reference to Barbara Walters. You wrote a book that was on the New York Times bestseller list. So, Carole, like, I'm a former lawyer, so here I am. So I don't know what that's all about, but you're intelligent. You have this very respectable journalistic career. So how is it, A, that you got involved, and B, did you have, I mean, I know you know Andy Cohen from before, and like, did you have reservations? Like, did you know kind of what you were getting into?
No, I had never seen the show, so I didn't really know what the show was about when Andy first brought it up. And I think the friendship between Andy and I was really like exaggerated. But I did know him. We have mutual friends, so I would see him, in New York at dinners and stuff, but we were never like close. I didn't really know what he did. I think my friend Karen Duffy, she was an MTV VJ, one of the originals. She's a very good friend of mine. And she was the one that first told me that Andy had a talk show and he would interview and a blog, and he would interview housewives. And I was like, what? I didn't even know what they were. So I saw a couple of his talk shows. So I was aware of what the housewives. And then he asked me to be on it. And no, I didn't. Weirdly, I didn't have that many reservations. I know, like, some housewives, they come on and they're like, well, I really did like a pro and con sheet, and I sat down with my family and my priest and my lawyer and said, is this something that we as a family? I didn't do any of that. I was just like, all right. I literally was like, okay, you want me to do this? I'll do it. I thought it was very kind of interesting, like cultural phenomenon, because as I sort of thought about it and saw, and then they sent me some of the seasons, I was definitely curious about it. And, I think that I remember, I said always in the beginning in the press, like, I did it because I was a journalist, not in spite of it, because journalists are they're curious about, things, whether it's politics, current events, war, cultural phenomena. It's like, there's just a curiosity factor that I think really played into it. So I just kind of said, sure, I'll do it. And then, honestly, I watched some of the shows, and I said, I was very clear with them. I don't have anything in common with these women. I could see that, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm not to put them down at all. They just had totally different life experiences as I did, up until the point they got on the show. And some of them were successful in other areas of life, and some were married and children and all that. But I could see that I wasn't, my temperament wasn't the same. Like, I knew that. And as well as my experience. So I kind of made a contract kind of with myself to not be anything other than who I am, meaning I'm not going to portray myself as being a socialite, because even though I was in that circle, certainly when I was married, I never engaged it. I was never interested in that, and I never partook in that. And my husband and I actually like kind of shunned it, because you can do that. We were invited to all this fancy thing, and this fundraiser and everything, and we didn't do any of it. We were like working kids. Like, we worked at ABC News. He did, I did. So I wasn't going to portray myself as that. I wasn't going to portray myself as richer than I was, and I certainly wasn't going to do anything like get drunk on national television, or take my clothes off, or, shame. Like, there was a lot of, I felt like this undercurrent of shaming women, a lot of the storylines are rooted in that misogynistic, sexist narrative of shame, right? And they all do it. And whether it's age shaming, which continues up into this season, right? Career shaming, slut shaming, right? It's a lot of shame. And I was never, I just felt like I'm not going to do that, even though it would be easy to, because the women just sometimes drove me crazy. And it would be easy to dismiss them with sort of some banner thing like, act your age, or or even like, even all the years that I was arguing with Luann, I would never said the things, I never called her a whore or a bitch or a drunk, or I never called anyone like that.